Hello, my name is Ruben Valenzuela, and I'm the Artistic Director of Bach Collegium San Diego. And we are very honored today to have Michael Maul coming to you actually live, I just found out, from the attic of the Mendelssohn House in Leipzig. I'll let him maybe say a remark or two about that. But the reason we're here with Michael is because the season closing concert of BCSD will be, it's called Bach and His Rivals, which brings together three composers who applied for the job of cantor at St. Thomas in 1722. That is J.S. Bach, of course, Telemann, and Christoph Graupner. Now, just a little bit of background of Michael. Michael is an esteemed musicologist, renowned Bach scholar. He came to the highlight. I mean, the light was shining bright on him. I think it was 2004, 5, with the discovery. Yes, with the discovery.
May 17.
With the discovery of the Bach aria Alles mit Gott. And then from there, he's also a researcher at the Bach Archiv in Leipzig. And also, as if he didn't have enough to do, he is the artistic director of BachFest Leipzig, which at the moment is faced with many obstacles and challenges due to the pandemic. But he has risen to the occasion on that, and we look forward to hearing what he has planned for that as well. But let's begin this discussion specific to the topic of the position of cantor at St. Thomas and how that came to be. What was the process of application when a job came open at, say, at St. Thomas? What was the process of applying for that position?
Not very different from today, actually. So in 17th, 18th, 19th century, the St. Thomas cantorate was a lifetime job. So, and all those people who were Thomas cantors, they died in the job. So, and that was the case also in 1722. In June, Johann Kuhnau, the St. Thomas cantor, died. And it was a normal thing that now the town council, who was in charge for the church and for the school, started a search, and everybody was allowed to send in an application, a letter of application. And in 1722, lots of applications came in. Unfortunately, the original application letters are not there anymore, not in the files, unfortunately. From other vacancies in the cantorate from 17th century, for example, we have all the letters of application, but unfortunately not from this vacancy after Kuhnau's death. But we know, based on the minutes of the town council, the minutes of their regular meetings, who applied for the job. And in the meeting in July 1722, it is said by the Lord Mayor of Leipzig, we got lots of applications, but there's a specific one I like very much. The most famous musician in Protestant Germany, Georg Philipp Telemann, applied, and I'm quite sure that will be the right person for this job. So, but yeah, actually the process quite similar to today. So submitting an application, and then the committee who is doing the search decides for a certain number of candidates who will be invited to do an official performance and audition. So, and that's what happened.
Yeah. So two quick questions. Do we know, I think you said the minutes are lost, but do we know some of the names of the applicants who were not invited beyond?
Yeah, these are mainly people you've never heard before.
Yes.
Cantors of middle-sized towns in Saxony or Thuringia. There's, for example, the cantor of the city of Pirna, a very small town south of Dresden. There were also the cantor of Laucha, that's a small town very close to Naumburg, where we have the famous Hildebrand organ today. Yeah. But many of these no-name applicants, in fact, were former members of the St. Thomas Boys Choir. So there were a lot of former Thomaners who applied for the job.
Okay. I mean, what would have been at this time the attraction of a place like St. Thomas? What would have attracted somebody like Telemann, who seemed to be quite successful what he was doing already? What was the carrot, so to speak?
It's a good question, Ruben, and I asked this question to myself because we know Telemann applied, who was a music director in Hamburg, and in Hamburg he worked with professional adult musicians. Mm-hmm. The same with J.S. Bach, who was the Hofkapellmeister of Köthen, working with professional musicians in the orchestra. Graupner, who also were part of the applicators. They were all used to work with adult professional musicians. And it sounds silly, actually, that they decided to become Thomaskantor, which was being the music teacher and music director in the boys' school. So, but here's the thing, the St. Thomas School was far away from a normal, ordinary boys' school. The St. Thomas School was something like a music conservatory, like no other institution in Protestant Germany in 17th and 18th century. It was a school which already in early 17th century decided to accept only highly musically talented boys to become boarders in the school. Mm-hmm. It was placed for 54 boarders. So, and if you really want to become one of these boarders, you had to pass a very hard musical entrance exam. And that makes the St. Thomas School famous in 17th century as the musical institution, not only in Saxony, in entire Protestant Germany. And it was nobody else than Heinrich Schütz, who in 1648, when he dedicated his famous motet collection, Geistliche Chormusik, the city of Leipzig, who wrote in the preface, I dedicate this collection to you, the city of Leipzig, because your choir was almost by far the best in the entire country. So, and that the reason for this was mainly because it was a school mainly, actually totally focused on music. The good thing for Leipzig was Leipzig had another school, the St. Nicholas School, which was mainly for the Leipzigers in order to create educated boys in the humanities. And the St. Thomas School played a very special role and had a chance to follow this very special way focused totally on music. And that made the institution famous, and that made people like Telemann or later Bach and Graupner to apply for the job.
Yeah, and then this would be a very good time to say something about, I have it in my hand right now.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get it in the shot. I've had this book for about a year, and I haven't finished it, but I find, not, like in a movie, I don't want to give away you have to go get the book, but chapter 4 really describes, what turns, sour for Bach in the 1730s. And that's all I will say. Get the book. It really gives you a lot of information on what Michael just said about the school being such an important musical institution of its time. Now, one other question to back up a little bit. So when Kuhnau was at the end of a cantorat, there was no system where the outgoing cantor would suggest to the town council, I have somebody in mind to take over. That person had just died or ended, and that was that. Nothing.
Yes, nothing like this happened in Leipzig. I know examples where something like this happened in other places in central Germany, but then the usual way was that maybe a very old cantor said to his town council, look, my son is as musically talented like me, so please let him being my successor, please. So
yes.
So father and son story that happened from time to time, but not in Leipzig, and that is really astonishing that they were almost really focused on finding a very famous musically in terms of musical skills, a famous person, not only in 1722 to 1723, look back in 17th century, who became St. Thomas cantors. Many of them were the main figures in Protestant church music in Germany at that time, like Sebastian Knüpfer, Johann Schelle, big names, really.
Yeah.
Johann Hermann Schein.
Yeah.
And that it was not by accident, that was because of this very musically friendly environment school provided.
Yeah, and I find this interesting tension of you're looking for a famous musician, but somebody also who can fulfill the role of cantor, who will be willing to teach the
Yes.
Latin, teach the courses, but also be famous on the other end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's this interesting tension there that I think Bach definitely felt and experienced during his tenure. Now let's go Telemann. Let's talk about the three applicants. Telemann, can you say a little bit about his connection specifically to Leipzig? He obviously had been there before, early in the 18th century. So can you say a little bit about his history there in Leipzig?
He had a really Leipzig story. I mean, he was a born Magdeburger. Magdeburg is 120 kilometers in the northwest of Leipzig, but he came to Leipzig as a university student in 1701. And actually his plan was to go to Leipzig to study law. So, and then by accident, that's what he told in his autobiography, in the apartment he took together with another student, he found lots of musical instruments and suddenly started again to play music, to compose music. And already as a student at the university, he was asked by then Lord Mayor of the city to compose every second week a sacred cantata for the St. Thomas Church, which was actually a unique thing in music history, because it was the St. Thomas cantors' business to perform on a weekly basis every Sunday, every feast day, a cantata, on the one Sunday in St. Thomas Church, on the other Sunday in St. Nicholas Church. So, and obviously Lord Mayor Romanus, that was his name, liked Telemann's music and asked him to come up with an own cantata every second week for St. Thomas Church. And I guess he did it always when Kuhnau performed with the St. Thomas boys in the other church. So
interesting.
And Telemann, despite the fact that he was only for 3 years in Leipzig, from 1701 to 1704, he made big changes in the musical system of Leipzig, because he not only served as a kind of second Thomas cantor in this time, he also created a Collegium Musicum, so which was an orchestra of students from the university performing on a regular basis in the coffee houses. And at the same time, he became the music director in the Opera House. Leipzig had the Opera House, which was founded in 1693. And it was actually the first public opera house in central Germany, and the third one in Germany, public opera house after the Hamburg Opera and the Braunschweig Opera. And this opera house performed wonderful operas always during the Leipzig trading fairs. 3 times a year, around Easter or shortly after Easter, around St. Michael's Day and after New Year's Eve. They had for 3 weeks always big trading fairs. In this time, Leipzig was the business center of Europe. And in that time, they had opera performances, and Telemann took over in 1702 and composed as a student of the university already about 6 or 7 operas. But even when he left Leipzig, first to Sorau as Kapellmeister, then to Eisenach, then to Frankfurt, and then finally as music director in Hamburg, he still composed operas for Leipzig. All in all, more than 20 operas. Almost all of them are lost. Wow. But I had the good luck when I wrote my dissertation. I was able to rediscover actually all the arias of one opera Telemann composed as a student in Leipzig in 1704. the title is Germanicus, so it's a very German story. The Germans against the Romans, so and wonderful music. And so in this early years, he actually rebuilt or updated the Leipzig music system, and
Wow.
had many fans. And because his music was still in Leipzig after he left the city, because of his operas he sent to Leipzig, everybody knew that this is the most famous, prestigious musician in the Protestant German world.
Yes.
And so the Leipzig Town Council felt very pleased when he applied in 1722. And he actually knew what he had to expect there, because I mean, he knew St. Thomas Boys Choir already for decades. He knew about the big tradition of the cantor's position. So, and obviously he really had an interest to get the job, which was, I would say, besides the Hamburg cantorat, these were the two most interesting, most important municipal positions for a musician in that time. So, and he was the music director in Hamburg already for 1 year, and so he decided to apply for the Leipzig job. And the Leipzig Town Council was totally happy, and there was an election, and all the members of the town council accepted Telemann. They liked the idea of having him, and actually they allowed him not to do the Latin classes in the school, because that was one of the things he asked for. Yeah, and they said, okay, you can do this if you are paying for a teacher who will do the teaching load in Latin for you. So that was the deal. So, and Telemann accepted. He wrote a letter of resigning in Hamburg to the Hamburg town council, saying, look, I got this Leipzig job and it sounds fantastic. I have an income twice as high as my Hamburg income, and I only have to do 50% of my work here in Hamburg. Very good thing. Is there something you can do for me? He asked afterwards. So, and then what happened was that the Hamburgers actually more than doubled his income. So, and then in early October 1722, Telemann wrote a letter to the Leipzigers saying, oh, sorry, I thought about my decision again, and now I step back and better look for another candidate. I keep in Hamburg. So it was a question of money, and he was, I guess he played a kind of poker game.
Yeah. And of course, we see this play out in music jobs, in sports jobs, all the time to the present day. It's a tale of the time. Now, let's talk a little bit about Graupner, because of the three applicants, I think this is probably the one that is least known. Graupner, but of course, very well connected to also Leipzig. Can you say a little thing about Graupner and how his involvement?
Yeah. I mean, he became the favorite candidate shortly after Telemann stepped back. And the Lord Mayor Lange, who was in charge for the search, presented to the town council that also Graupner applied, and he said, wonderful musician, and we would be happy to have him here, because he also had a very long Leipzig story. Graupner himself was a former boarder of St. Thomas School. So he was at St. Thomas School from the late 1690s till, I guess, 1705. He studied 2 years at the Leipzig University. He was a student of Johann Kuhnau and a former prefect of the choir. So he knew this institution very much. And after he left Leipzig, he went to the Hamburg Opera and composed operas at the Hamburg Opera House. At the same time, when George Frederick Handel was there and Johann Mattheson, And then he ended up as the Kapellmeister at the court of Darmstadt, which is in western part of Germany. And he was a very, very good composer who were able to come up with a style which was on the one hand very dramatic, theatrical music, very much focused on word painting, like Telemann. But on the other hand, he was very much devoted on church music that invites the audience for devotion. And the interesting thing about him is we have tons of cantatas by him. More than 2,000 have survived. Because till the end of his life, he was the court Kapellmeister in Darmstadt, and all the cantatas, almost all of the cantatas, he composed in over 35 years in office, actually survived. Not only the original scores, but also the original performing parts. They are all now part of the university library in Darmstadt, and all of them are online. You can actually go through all the scores and original performing parts, and you can make interesting, what is Entdeckung? Sorry. Yeah, I'm searching for the right word, but discoveries. Sorry,
yes.
Interesting discoveries in this music. Graupner's music is quite interesting. So, and I'm sure that after Telemann didn't accept the invitation to become Johann Kuhnau's successor in the eyes of the town council, he was a perfect candidate because he was famous as an opera composer on the one hand. On the other hand, he did quite a good job as a Hofkapellmeister, performing on a weekly basis, always new cantatas. And so they were happy, but here's the thing, Graupner told the town council, okay, if you like me, great, but first of all, I have to ask my boss, the Prince of Darmstadt, if he let him go or not. So, and that was the big question. Interesting thing is also that we have Graupner's original application cantatas, so the pieces survived.
Yes.
Very interesting music, and you really can feel why the Leipzigers liked his music, because it is highly contrapuntal, but it's also on the other hand little, it's dramatic, but it's not too operatic music. So it's very proper for a good church musical experience.
Yeah, and neither Telemann or Graupner had, unless I missed something, neither of them had been cantors before, right?
Neither of them, you're right, yes.
Interesting that to go, I mean, again, such a specific job, and to suddenly be applying to one of the most high cantorates, you know, in Germany, seems like this might pose an issue in terms of what you have to do and so forth and so on.
Yeah, but there was a large part of the town council was quite sure that they were searching for a person who will provide music that fits to the richness of the city. So it's they wanted to have a good composer, first of all. Yeah, and they were ready to make compromises concerning the teaching load. So because they knew, I mean, it's all about prestige. Yeah, they wanted to have a church music that fits to the entire picture of the city the town council had in mind, and they wanted actually to have music which was able to rank on a level of the best court orchestras.
Yes. Okay. All right.
That was the goal, and that was maybe the reason why all these candidates they wanted to have for the job were in fact trained and well-educated professional musicians who didn't work in a boys' school before.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the so-called third choice,
Good.
the name that you know that we know so well. And J.S. Bach, how does he end up being the third choice? What even gets him to apply? He seemed to be doing okay in Curtin, and what brings him to Leipzig? What was the catalyst there?
Unfortunately, we don't have a diary by Bach. Yeah? And
Yeah.
it's a bad thing that in general we have on the one thing all those works by him amazing, but on the other hand, that's a bad thing. Only a small number of private documents, letters. But at least for the question why he applied for the job, we have an answer by Bach himself, which he wrote in a letter in 70 years no, 7 years after he accepted the job in 1730, he wrote a letter to his former schoolmate, Georg, a person, meanwhile, was a diplomat for Russia, living in Danzig in Poland. And Bach gave him a short update about his life. And he said, yes, after I left school, I was organist in Thuringia, and then I was the Kapellmeister in Köthen, and I had the good luck that the Prince of Köthen loved music, and I really thought that I will end my life as a Kapellmeister in Köthen because of this wonderful constellation, having a boss who's spending crazy much for music and loves music. But then something happened, and that's what he is explaining in the letter. This Prince Leopold married a woman who didn't have any interest in music. He actually called his wife a amusa, so a person totally alien to music, yeah, not interested in general. And so Bach felt that maybe even the interest, the Prince's interest in music could go away, and he also knew that actually the Prince was almost bankrupt. And he spent crazy much money for music, but in fact he didn't have money because it was a very small territory. He reigned at a very small income, lots of debts.
Yeah.
So, and you know, Bach's family became bigger and bigger. Yeah. Many children, and Köthen is a place far away from all the important places in Germany, far away from a university.
Yeah.
It's mainly a castle with some houses around and lots of cows and so on. Yeah. So and therefore that's what he wrote to his former schoolmate Erdmann. Therefore, he decided to apply for the job and got the job. And he also wrote that it took him, I guess, 2 months of rethinking again about the final step, accepting the position or not. So because it was a big step for him, because he felt the thing that he actually would stop working with only professional musicians. Because I mean, the boys are boys, despite the fact that they are musically talented, well trained, but they are still boys. Yeah. And the quality of the town musicians was from a large variety, obviously. But on the other thing, and I guess that was the big argument, the income as a Thomas cantor was quite high. The regular salary was relatively low, about 100 gulden, yeah. But in fact, he earned about 800, 900, or even 1,000 gulden, because Bach received a part of the money the choir earned from all of the funerals, from all of the weddings, and he had his private students and so on. So, and therefore the real income was about 8, 9, 10 times higher than the regular salary. And that made the job attractive.
Yes.
And the city was attractive for Bach because there was a university, and he really wanted to bring his sons to the university. That was his strong wish, and he knew about the long tradition of the choir. An interesting thing is also that what some of the main members of the former Weimar court orchestra, where he worked for 9 years, were actually former boarders of St. Thomas School. So maybe they already told him about the big qualities and many opportunities he would have in Leipzig. And I guess that was the reason why he finally accepted the position. And I'm sure that he really convinced the town council by his music. I mean, we are happy because we are having his 2 audition cantatas. And look, you know the pieces. I'm sure that you know them and that you love them. And I guess with these pieces, he gave a very good introduction into his musical skills. He obviously avoided to perform very operatic, dramatic music, because maybe he knew that there were some enemies of operatic music in the town council. So he tried to convince with his skills in writing contrapuntal music, writing a choral fantasy in Du wahrer Gott und Davidson with the Christe du Lamm Gottes. I mean, that was a really convincing example how he was able to deal in a very creative way with a famous choral melody. And the piece was also very short, 20 minutes, both pieces. That was also important for some of the members of the town council, because some of them didn't like too much church music. They wanted to make sure that latest after 1 hour of service, the sermon started, and that gave about 20 minutes for a cantata. The time for a cantata shouldn't be longer.
Yes.
It was also part of his contract later, which he signed in April 1723. He signed a contract with a paragraph saying, I promise that I will always compose church music, church cantatas, which are not too long and which are not too much on the dramatic and operatic side, but music which invites the audience to devotion, so very devotional and not operatic music. And I guess focusing on these points, he provided the perfect audition cantatas.
Yes. And you know, if you compare the style, say Telemann, Graupner, who I think in my mind, you know, it's a style that sometimes looks towards the middle of the 18th century than say Bach or even Telemann to some extent. Do you anything about the town council or the Leipzigers in terms of what kind of style they wanted as in their cantor, in terms of a more forward-looking composer, a more conservative composer? You know, I mean, they're so different, all 3 of them.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to decide what they really wanted, because I guess there was a large variety of wishes and a large variety of musical knowledge within the town council.
Yeah.
And some of them maybe had an idea of what is modern or what is old-fashioned.
Yes.
And I'm sure that what Telemann did, everybody considered as modern. He was state of the art. And I mean, Telemann's style is that he had a fascinating way to deal with word painting. So Telemann always tries to find convincing musical pictures for the text, and he is able actually to paint every German word in music. So it's like a firework of ideas. So, but maybe he is not the person who is very much focused on coming up with a very strong fugue and dealing very long with a certain word or certain effect. But what Bach did is neither old-fashioned nor modern. It's Bachian style. I mean, he really demonstrated in his audition cantata that he is able to come up with very creative solutions how to make musical interpretations of certain biblical texts.
Yes.
And look in the cantata BWV 23, the different ways he is dealing with the Christe du Lamm Gottes melody. On the one hand with the big chorale fantasy, on the other hand with having the melody already as an instrumental melody in the recitative before the big choral fantasy. That was something which was neither old-fashioned nor modern, but something which musical connoisseurs, which were in the audience when he performed his audition cantata, definitely realized. And I'm sure that those who realized this said, wow, what he is doing here. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. He is really a learned musician, a very fascinating, multifaceted composer, and that fits very well to the status of the Leipzig city. It's good.
Yeah. Okay.
And Graupner, on the other hand, I mean, he's also writing modern music in a very, very own style. If you ever listen to Graupner's music, maybe you had the same impression like me. I like his music. I find it very interesting, but it is music which never fits the expectations of the audience. You are listening to a certain phrase, and then now if you would be asked, what will be the next bars?
Yes.
You can be quite sure that Graupner will come up with something quite different. So it's always so surprising, and it's sometimes a little complicated music in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess all the members of the town council consider the music of the three candidates as modern music in different ways.
Yes. And let's end this chat with the $1 million question. The $1 million question is this: if Bach had not applied, or let's say he did not apply to the contract at Leipzig, or he didn't even get it, where would he have gone? What would have been his next step, you think?
Ooh, okay. I'm quite sure that he would have left Köthen within the next 2 or 3 years, because the prince was almost bankrupt when Bach left Köthen, and he died a few years later in 1729. So my impression is, because of the experience he made first in Weimar and then in Köthen, that working on the court and working on a court is combined with a lot of risks for him, because it could always happen that his boss is not interested in music anymore. Look back what he experienced in Weimar when he left the court. He was in the kitchen actually for not in the kitchen, in jail for 4 weeks, and he was totally relying on the prince or the duke's decisions, and I guess therefore he really would have searched for a municipal position, which fit his expectations in terms of income and opportunities of working with good musicians. And maybe therefore your question is really hard to answer, because it was not easy to find municipal positions in that time which offering an income on such a high level. And Hamburg, I mean, that was the place where Telemann reigned, yeah, and that was till 1766 when he died. So maybe a place like Frankfurt could have been interesting for him.
Yeah.
Frankfurt, maybe, I mean, I have to be very careful with this idea, but the most rich court in central Germany was the Dresden court.
Yeah, yeah.
And here we had the situation, the crazy situation, that in Saxony, which was the Protestant country in Germany, started in 1697, the elector was a Catholic, because that was when August the Strong converted from Protestantism to Catholicism, because he wanted to become also the king of Poland.
Right.
And so that was the reason why he converted to Catholicism. And but still, in the 1720s, the Dresden Court Orchestra had an Italian Kapellmeister, which was a Catholic, and a German Kapellmeister, Johann David Heinichen, by the way, a former boy of St. Thomas School.
Okay.
Yeah? And he died in 1728 or 1729.
Yeah.
And maybe Bach had applied for this job. But the big question is, if he get a job in 1729 or 1730, I'm not sure if Bach maybe converted to Catholicism.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
I have to be careful, yeah. But
Yes.
actually, this position, the Heinichen position, was then starting in the 1730s the position of Johann Adolf Hasse, who was a born Protestant, but he converted to he became a Catholic. So maybe Bach had applied for this job.
Yes.
And if that happened, if this would have happened, maybe we had many more B minor masses and misereres or something like this by Bach.
The idea of Bach converting to Catholicism would potentially break the internet. It's that kind of like news item. Well, this has been absolutely as we were preparing this concert, which we recorded last week. It was fascinating for the musicians to be in 3 days' time, be immersed in Telemann, Graupner, and Bach, and to see the differences, the challenges, the peculiarities of each composer, and the strengths of each composer. It's been very fascinating. And I think this opportunity to talk with you about these three composers and also the tradition of the Thomas Cantor has been incredibly helpful for us to understand this.
I did my best.
Yes. No. Before we leave you, tell us a little bit. You're in the attic at the Mendelssohn House.
Right. Yes. I actually moved into this apartment only 3 months ago.
Okay.
I was searching for a new apartment, and it was by accident that I learned from my colleagues in the Mendelssohn House that they have a free apartment.
Perfect.
There are 3 apartments in the attic of the Mendelssohn House. One of them, the former Gewandhauskapellmeister Blumstedt.
Yes.
Yeah, not this apartment, but the other one.
Oh my gosh.
And now it's full with musicians. It's not only me. There's a jazz musician and another one. So now I'm in the very special situation that I'm living in the Mendelssohn House and I'm working in the Bach Archive at the St. Thomas Kirchhof.
Oh my goodness.
I feel very much blessed by this. I mean, very prominent places, I guess.
Very prominent places. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time. And we hope you all the best. I know you have some hard work ahead of you with BachFest coming up.
Yes.
And some pivoting there, but no doubt.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for BachFest. Because, I mean, we are still struggling with the pandemic here in Germany. We are doing not such a good job with the vaccination like you are doing in the US.
Yes.
So, and meanwhile, it seems not realistic anymore to have a BachFest in June with audience. We will come up with a final decision on Friday. But one thing is for sure, we are doing the main concerts, including the big cycle, Bach's Messiah, which I created based on all those cantatas telling us certain stories in Jesus' life. I put them together. It's a new ring of cantatas, and we will do it. And we will definitely do it also in a streaming, so everybody can have access. And you will learn more about this within the next weeks. And I promise it will be maybe for some of us Bachians a kind of life-changing experience, because I guess it provides a new access to the cantatas, and Koopman is included, Suzuki, Rademann, so big names. And I hope that we will be able to perform it. I strongly hope that our Jesus doesn't get a corona infection. That
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yes, 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 yes.
I have very good feelings. I hope we are on the safe side, so stay tuned. And I would be happy to welcome you in the stream. And I would be more than happy to welcome you, Ruben, your group, and yeah, all the Bachians sooner or later on BachFest. Next year we are doing the big Bach We Are Family Festival.
Yes.
But in 2023 we have to do also a very big BachFest, because then we are celebrating the 300th anniversary of Bach taking office as St. Thomas Cantor.
There we go.
Which is a big event, and then the audition cantatas will play definitely a prominent role. Also the music by Graupner and Telemann, because I mean, if they got the job, today we had a Graupner or a Telemann festival on an annual basis. So, I think I'm actually happy that we finally ended up with Bach. Thanks,
yes,
God.
yeah, no, I am too. I have a dear friend who, of those three composers, he's most fond of Graupner. He loves Graupner, and he has made the joke of we need to put up a statue of Graupner, not in the courtyard where the Bach one is, but perhaps a little bit out there, just to remind folks that here was another applicant who has created and composed some incredible music that should not be forgotten. So
definitely.
Nevertheless, so. Well, Michael, thank you. Yeah.
Good luck for your concert. And
yes.
I'm curious to. I'm looking forward to listen to it. And good luck. Yeah.
Very much. You will. We will be releasing it very soon. I will keep you in touch with that. And again, Michael, thank you and best wishes.